Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second public art community engagement event of artist Meredith Connelly for the Mecklenburg County Ezell Farms Community Park. I'm Todd Stewart, ASC's Vice President of Public Art, and tonight we're going to go over a little bit about ASC and the programs we provide, do a very brief overview of the Ezell Farms Community Park and the scope for the artwork. And then the main focus of this evening's presentation will be Meredith Connelly, our commissioned artist, sharing a little bit about her concept that she's developed for this specific park, with plenty of time for questions and comments at the end of the presentation. Before we begin, you should have received a notification upon joining the meeting that tonight's event is being recorded. So just keep that in mind as we're going on. And Rendella, will you please advance to the next slide? A few other housekeeping items to mention. Please mute your audio. This will allow us to hear each presenter clearly, and it'll also allow us to hear you clearly when you ask questions towards the end. If you wish to unmute yourself, you'll see the microphone icon in the bottom of your desktop. On the Zoom screen, you can select or deselect that depending on whether you want to mute or unmute. You can also temporarily unmute yourself by pressing the space bar on your laptop or desktop keyboard. Next slide, Rendella. If you have a question, either during the presentation, towards the end, a good way to get our attention is to use the reactions feature. If you select the smiley face icon, it says reactions. You can choose raise hand. That'll do kind of a virtual raised hand beside your Zoom icon, and either Rendella or myself will call on you for your question or comment. Next slide. And at any time, please feel free to share thoughts or questions via chat. You can select the speech bubble icon. Next slide. And the chat log will pop up, and you can type your message either to everyone or select a specific individual that you want to message to. This is a great way for us to keep track of everyone's questions, or to jot down a question you may have without interrupting the presenter. Next slide, please. So a little bit about ASC, for those of you who may not be familiar with us. We have been involved in public art management since 1992. And then in 2002 and 2003, the city and the county, respectively, each adopted 1% for art ordinances. So these ordinances appropriate 1% of eligible capital improvement project funds to the creation of public art, usually tied to those capital improvement projects. To date, ASC has completed 182 projects, and we currently have 41 in progress, including Meredith's tonight. Next slide, Rendella. Community engagement, like we're engaging in tonight, is a crucial part of this process, and ASC engages community through various means. Representatives participate and serve on our artist selection panels, actually giving voice to the commission in terms of which artists get selected as finalists and then ultimately receive the commissions. And then throughout the development process, artists dialogue with communities, and this ensures that it's created with the community's voice in mind. At various times throughout the development of a project or towards its end, artists and community members gather to engage in artist-led workshops, either in person or virtual. We've been doing a lot of those virtually through the pandemic. From time to time, artists will develop surveys to highlight specific questions they may have of communities, and then also presentations, talks, and dedications, helping the community to be informed of artists working in our region or nationally. If you would like further information about this specific project or ASC in general, please feel free to reach out to myself, Todd Stewart, or my project manager, Rendella Foster. You can also find more information on our website at www.artsandscience.org. There's specific categories for ASC public art and calls to artists. The public art will go over some of our ordinances and other resources. Calls to artists specifically talks about any requests for qualifications or requests for proposals that we currently have open to artists to apply to. And you can always follow us on Facebook and Instagram at ASC Charlotte. Next slide. So now I'm going to turn it over to Rendella Foster, ASC's project manager for public art, and she's going to give you a brief overview of the Ezell Farms Community Park.
Thank you, Todd. So I'm going to do a really brief overview, just a refresher, and then for those who weren't present on the initial community engagement. The site for this project is 4101 Mintwood Drive, that is in Mint Hill. The project budget is $73,100. This site is a previously privately owned farm. It's a little over 90 acres of mostly very beautiful rolling terrain. It lies within the Goose Creek watershed and within the Mint Hill post-construction stormwater ordinance district. The county has envisioned a historic farm theme with agrarian and nature-based activities for this park. Those would be related to the education and preservation of nature, or the sustainable cultivation of the land and the advancement of local agricultural groups. The park will serve residents within a 15-minute drive of the park. There are 2 design development phases for the park. This phase 1 will include a splash pad, tennis courts, full court basketball, community garden with some improvements, an informal amphitheater, an open field play area, an open architecture pavilion structure, a nature play area, of course, restroom and pool house, along with a multi-use path along Highway 51. The park will also have walking trails, and there are actually 2 ponds on the site, one large and one small. And of course, the public art. The anticipated completion is fall 2023, spring 2024. The phase 2 amenities are to be determined. And this is just a site map, just outlining the 90-acre parcel, which borders Mintwood Drive, Matthew Mint Hill Road, as well as Wells Road. And so the art goals and criteria, we want the artwork to achieve a cohesive and unique aesthetic experience that is distinguished from, yet still sensitive to the site and the architecture of the Ezell Farms Community Park and surrounding area. We want the artwork to feel integrated into the site. It should align with Mecklenburg County's historic farm theme and agrarian and nature-based project vision, and it should be constructed of durable materials, permanent in nature. Thank you. And now that we've got the housekeeping out of the way, what you're excited to hear from next, you're excited to hear from Meredith Connelly, the artist that has been commissioned. She presented her concept design to the Public Art Commission last month, and it was approved. And so she's here tonight to share that concept with you. Meredith, I'm going to turn it over to you, and just tell me when you want me to advance the slides.
I will do that. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this evening. It's really exciting that we're at this phase in the project, and I cannot wait to share more about what we're doing. Please excuse if you hear a little bit of an echo. I'm actually installing sculptures this week, so I'm in a kind of construction zone area zooming in. We'll get, just for those of you that need a refresher, my past work. I have this work called Fairy Ring. It's at Atherton Mill in South End, Charlotte. It consists of 112 cast fiberglass mushrooms and is my first permanent installation. But you can see I'm deeply inspired by science, nature, and technology, and that will be integrated into the concept for Ezell as well. You can advance. Here's some additional past work. These were temporary installations, but also examples of inspiration through nature, integration into nature. I really firmly believe that art, especially art that's placed in these natural settings, should have a conversation with the natural environment and not feel as if it's plopped down. I really love that piece of it. And so on the left, you'll see crystals. That's made of a cast resin, and it had multicolored remote control lighting, so I could change that. And then on the right is roots, which was actually sculpted on site made of a thermoplastic. We can advance. I wanted to include also an image of my two-dimensional work. So I pay attention to the small, intricate things I see that inspire me in nature. I love microscopic images, and this is an example of a hand-cut paper piece based off of butterfly wings. And what I find really beautiful about this is I'm starting to see more of a bridge between my two-dimensional work and my sculptural work, and that will be pretty clear when I start to go into the concept for Ezell Farms, which is also entitled Wings. We can advance, please. So here is just a sketch of the install, the proposed concept wings. Right now, we don't have the full rendering, so this is very much just to kind of get a visualization. And then when we have another community engagement, you'll see more of the scaled sculptures with a bit more detail on the landscape. But you can see here, there are 3 wing structures embedded in the ground. And we can talk about, yeah, we can advance, Randa. We can talk about the concept behind that drawing. So this inspiration came in layers in association with the pollinators that inhabit the land, the gloriously structural elements of butterfly wings, which you all can see even from my past work, I can't get enough of. And also the ancient approach of the sun to tell time. The butterfly is a powerful symbol for me and across cultures, dating back to ancient times, that symbolizes transformation, change, rebirth, the human soul. I found it really interesting that fossils date back 2 million years for butterflies, and it actually now they think that they came before flowers. So it's pretty neat to see that they evolved and potentially helped foster that change in the environment. We can advance. Pollinators such as the American painted lady butterfly, which you see images of here, both with the open wingspan and the closed wingspan, acted as a visual representation of the farm's past, present, and the future. These pollinators have aided in prosperous growth of the land and the crops at Ezell Farms during the agricultural period of its history. They also continue to play a foundational role in supporting the plant population and the community garden on the premises, which I felt a deep connection to as well. We can advance. So wings, the proposed sculpture is based on the wing segments of the American painted lady butterfly. I'd like to note that this specimen was identified based off of the biodiversity report. So it's observed that this is native to the area. The wings concept will use translucent materials to engage the light of the sun and will cast patterned shadows that will move and shift as the day passes. A series of 3 wing-like structures will be embedded into the ground, appearing to emerge from the earth. Beyond seeing the work from multiple viewpoints on the premises, visitors can interact with wings by walking around the sculptures, or you'll notice when we get to that space that there's a paved area for access, for ADA access as well. A nod to the ancient sundials and timekeeping, the cast shadow patterns will also adorn the viewers as they engage with the art. And for further engagement, these are able to be touched, and viewers are invited to come close to the work, as close to the work as they would like. At this stage, there will not be a visible plinth or barrier preventing their access, though there may be some finishing on the ground in a minimal way around the sculptures, just for foot traffic purposes. We can advance. In regards to materials, I am a huge material nerd. I love industrial materials. It just brings me so much joy to research those. So I have identified a powder-coated steel, and you can see on the top image that it's a channel. So basically, in a way, you can think of it as kind of a giant stained glass approach. The panels will slide into the channel and that's how they'll be held together with some additional adhesive and potentially bolted in. The channel will parallel the thickness of the polycarbonate material, which I'll explain in just a minute. And the exterior coating of the steel channel will be a powder coated matte white or light color like that, with some additional protective elements that are added into that powder coat, like a urethane and fluoropolymer that really just help protect it from chipping, peeling, and all the elements that touch the sculpture. Polycarbonate is a beautiful material. It's architectural grade. It's been identified to be wonderful for extreme weather. It's high impact and lightweight. It's a very glass-like, so think of a glass material aesthetic there. It is used in greenhouses, and I really, really liked that connection. That material connection to me made a lot of sense with the park's history. So at this point, I'm now digging deeper into researching the exact thickness and finish of the polycarbonate. I'm looking for something that's translucent and frosted specifically, excuse me. But you can see the examples down in the image below. We can advance. I think it's important to also show even what might not be seen by the naked eye at first, but some additional elements would be that these sculptures will be held in with steel and concrete and checked off by a structural engineer. I was already talking to this engineer even before presenting the concept, just to make sure that everything would line up and be extremely safe, especially since from the aesthetic point, the top looks very heavy compared to the bottom. So just rest assured that those will be firmly planted accordingly. And an additional element, and something that you could see with my previous work, is I do integrate light into my sculptures. And while by day that light element will be engaged through the sun, at night there will be an added element, and that is a cast Bluetooth programmed lighting that's outdoor grade. It's a landscape lighting. I've used it in the past and it's been really wonderful, but I'm able to program that with a gradient of colors that will cast up the sculptures to add some reflective and colorful elements at night. In phase two, there is phase two of the park plan. There's an event center. So while the park's hours are not, going late into the night with events and opportunities there may be visitors at those hours, and it can act as another art experience that's transformed. We can advance. So location. I know it may be a little difficult to visualize it here, but you can see where it says sculpture location on the map. If you see the two kind of rectangles below that X, that is actually the first rectangle on the left, thank you, is the restroom and pool house area. So that is part of phase one. Everything you see in green is part of phase one. So my thought process behind placing the sculptures in that area is that there will be multiple viewpoints, and as it's built out, that's also where the event and welcome center will be. So there's going to be a lot of interaction with the work there in that space. We can advance. So now I can talk about just the details of the design a little bit more, which is always fun. There will be 3 individual wing forms that comprise the overall installation. They'll range in scale from 9 to 15 feet. I'm thinking, that these will be placed, obviously in conversation with each other, but they'll also accommodate views of the wings at different eye levels. So based on the scale and the height of the viewer, everyone will be able to see different elements of the work and walking in the round. I also really love the placement so that you can wind in and out in different ways as you walk or stroll. Conceptually, each wing symbolizes a different period of time associated with Ezell Farms and the park. So there will be the past, the present, and the future, and each wing is symbolic of that. the largest wing to me will be the future wing. And that's just to really think about what is to come from the land there and offer some hope and excitement around that. We can advance. So in conclusion, this design is inspired by the American painted lady butterfly, the ancient approach of timekeeping with great emphasis on the land's past, present, and future. The delicate and visually light sculptures will integrate and highlight nature while also engaging viewers in multiple ways. I really, really love the translucent element because as you look through the wings, you'll get to see little snapshots or vignettes of nature. And I think that's really important to connect it to that. The scale of the works in the design space will be significant and playful. They will appear to float on the landscape, and upon approaching, the viewer will see the scale and feel that height more impactfully, wearing the cast shadows as light passes through the works. All the materials are industrial and architectural grade and appropriate for long-term applications outside. Okay. Do you guys have any questions, comments? I'm ready.
Yeah, so thank you, Meredith. And everyone, as I said earlier at the start of the presentation, please feel free to raise your hand or just call out for our attention to ask a question. Or if you would like to use the chat feature, Rendell and I will monitor that and recite your questions or comments for you.
So there is one question in the chat. How do you plan to explain your concept on site, any type of display? Todd, you want to take that one?
Yeah, sure. So ASC actually produces plaques, descriptive, informative plaques for each artwork that's commissioned. It usually contains the title, the artist, a brief description of materials, and then most importantly, the artist statement. So we'll be working with Meredith on that to develop a concise statement that explains her concept for the artwork, and it will accompany the artwork nearby.
It's a good question. Thank you.
And
so just a comment, are you going to read it? You can go ahead.
No, go for it, Rendell.
Just a comment just from Laura T. She says she too loves butterflies. She thinks this looks terrific. She's looking forward to its completion and installation. And Laura, we are too. I think so. You know, this is Meredith's second community engagement, and your thoughts and feedback will help further inspire. Like, this was her initial thought and how she wanted to move forward with the project. So any thoughts or other comments that you have, she definitely wants to hear those, because it may be something that can help her further develop this to get it to something that is further inspired by you, the community. So
yeah, I echo that sentiment, especially because for me, public art is really about art for everyone and people from all walks of life engaging with the work. And so making sure that I don't have tunnel vision and I have feedback and that it is representative is really important, and I'm committed to that. So I definitely, anything that you'd like to share would be so welcomed.
And Rendella, can we back it up to a slide that shows Meredith's concept so everyone can be looking at that while we ask questions?
That's a good idea.
Thank you.
That slide that was just there shows the different plants that they feed off of too, which I nerded out over. It was like a rabbit hole.
So we have a question. Can you talk more about the space around the art as far as landscape, trees, etc.?
Yes, so I can to an extent. There's the design team, which is amazing, and we've been in great communication. They're still working on detailed renderings around that, so I can give you some general information, but beyond that, we're still kind of working that out. So actually, if we were—
And Meredith.
Yeah.
Meredith, and you can comment, but David Booth as well as Dan Blackman, they're both on the call if they want to follow up. as well.
Okay, yeah. If you look at the site location, there was a map that I shared on the sculpture location site. You'll see circles around the plot where I had placed the sculptures. So that's kind of showing some landscaping and trees. So it'll be placed they'll be placed on a grassy area. I don't remember the exact square footage, but it's over 100 square feet on both sides. One side is, I think, 183 square feet. So there's a lot of space on the landscape where they'll be placed. And then juxtaposed with the architecture, you'll see that is kind of where the rectangles are. That's the welcome center and the bathrooms. And so that's kind of that rustic farm theme. I did identify just trying to keep materials integrated with their overall design. I think that from the sculpture, from where you're standing at the sculpture, that you'll see it from multiple viewpoints, including the landscaping and the community garden, the meadow. So that's kind of why I chose that area, was just depending on where you are turning your body and looking through the work, you will actually see different frames of the natural landscape through the sculpture as well. Does that answer it? It is close to the restroom. It's not like going to be right next to it, but it is in proximity to that.
David, can you confirm, I believe like this area back here is going to be mostly still the wooded area with the walking trail. So you'll have a pretty good like landscape of tree canopies and things back in this area as well. I believe, if I'm correct, David.
No, that's a little further further down. The adjacent house that's on that property there that is in that kind of zone, and was supposed to be a orchard type area, which is just currently farm meadow right now. And I think that we're going to maintain that farm meadow appearance for the time being. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, if anything, but we did discuss early on about where the sculptural location is and converting that area. It's not, could be grass, could be, perennial landscape, could be looking at something more native or natural, in that location, and working with Meredith on her design in creating that pollinator garden area that'll be right next to the existing garden. So it'll help bring pollinators to the garden for those that are gardening in that area.
Yeah. And I know it has an X marks the spot on the map, but when we get to the schematic phase and we have the renderings, it will be more precise. And so, while that's like the general area, we will get a little more into the weeds in detail with the exact location of that.
I should say, going back to your comment, Rendell, is it the backdrop? We're going to maintain a lot of those existing larger trees that's in the background near that formal future formal event lawn. So a lot of those trees that are currently existing up near the garden are going to stay. So that's, you will see that kind of backdrop there.
Any other thoughts, comments, questions?
SL1, thank you. I'm ready to get started too. Thank you. I am started. I've been started, but.
All right, well, if there's no more questions or comments, we'll adjourn the meeting. I'd just like to thank everyone for showing up and sharing your thoughts, your questions. And Meredith, I'd like to give a special thanks to you for developing this amazing concept, for taking the time to walk us through it tonight. And
Honored.
David and Dan, thank you both for being such great collaborators on this project. And Rendella, thank you for everything you do for ASE and the public art team, and for getting this project off to such a good start. So thank you all. Have a good evening and a great weekend.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.
The comments are flowing in now, Meredith, that we're closing out saying, thank you, looks great, love the artwork.
Oh,
sharing
so
that with you.
sweet. You guys are,
Yeah.
you're invigorating me to get to the next phase now. Thanks, everybody. I hope you all have a great night.
Yeah.